Hey, this is Tony from the Cold Case Project, where we focus on unsolved cases across the United States. Our mission is to bring attention to these unresolved mysteries that need your help. All the information we cover in these cases is readily available on the internet, but we rewrite and repurpose it for the purpose of these videos. Our goal is to spread the word about the thousands of unsolved cold cases still out there. Thank you for watching. If you want to help shed light on these cases, make sure to like and subscribe for more content. Your support can make a difference. Kimberly Doss's story is one of mystery, heartbreak, and resilience. Her disappearance on March 20th, 1980, remains unsolved, leaving her family and advocates to grapple with unanswered questions and a relentless pursuit of the truth. It happens often where over the course of decades, cases get facts mixed up. And today I'm bringing you with these next few cases. Kimberly Doss was a vibrant, free-spirited teenager navigating the complexities of adolescence in the late 1970s and early 1980s. Born into a loving family, Kimberly's early years were marked by the typical joys and challenges of childhood. However, her life took a significant turn when her parents divorced a few years prior to her disappearance. Following the divorce, Kimberly and her older sister moved from Davenport, Iowa, to Houston, Texas, with their mother. Despite the distance, the girls maintained a close relationship with their father, frequently traveling back and forth between the two cities for extended visits. Kimberly's life was characterized by frequent school changes, which, while stressful, did not dampen her cheerful and independent nature. Her mother described her as a free spirit, a young girl who embraced life with enthusiasm and curiosity. Kimberly had a strong network of friends in both Davenport and Houston, and she cherished her relationships with them. The divorce and subsequent remarriages of both parents introduced new dynamics into Kimberly's life. Her father remarried, bringing stepdaughters into the family, and her mother also remarried, adding step-siblings to the mix. Despite these changes, the family blended well, and Kimberly formed close bonds with her step-siblings, particularly her stepsister Wendy, with whom she shared a special connection. Kimberly's desire to return to Davenport in the months leading up to her disappearance was driven by typical teenage yearnings. She wanted to be near her friends and her boyfriend, Dallas Murphy. It's important to clarify that Kimberly's reasons for wanting to return to Davenport were not rooted in familial discord or unhappiness. She was a normal teenager, eager to spread her wings and assert her independence. At the time of her disappearance, Kimberly's family life was stable and loving, albeit marked by the usual tensions that arise during adolescence. She was particularly close to her mother, though. Like many teenagers, she occasionally clashed with her over issues of independence. These disagreements were minor and never escalated into significant conflicts. Kimberly had one older sister, with whom she shared a close but somewhat separate relationship due to their differing friend groups. Her bond with her stepsister, Wendy, however, was especially strong. The two spent considerable time together during Kimberly's visits to Davenport, and Wendy's memories of Kimberly remain a cherished part of her story. Tragically, Wendy passed away in a car accident as an adult, taking with her invaluable insights into Kimberly's life and the events leading up to her disappearance. In Houston, Kimberly had another circle of friends, though these relationships have faded over time. Despite the challenges of moving between two cities, Kimberly's life was, by all accounts, typical for a girl her age. She was well-liked, outgoing, and full of potential. In late 1979, Kimberly returned to Davenport to stay with her father for a period. However, upon returning to Houston, she found herself increasingly discontented and eager to go back to Davenport. After an argument with her mother, Kimberly made the impulsive decision to have a friend take her to the bus station in Houston, where she purchased a ticket and returned to Davenport. This time, however, Kimberly did not stay with her father. Instead, she chose to stay with the family of her boyfriend, Dallas Murphy. This decision was made with her mother's consent, as the family was well known to them, and it seemed like a reasonable short-term solution while everyone cooled off. Kimberly remained in touch with her mother during this time and appeared to be happy and upbeat. It's crucial to emphasize that Kimberly's stay with Dallas Murphy's family was not a case of a 14-year-old girl living with her 16-year-old boyfriend. This was a temporary arrangement born out of teenage rebellion and a desire to be near her friends. Misconceptions about this aspect of Kimberly's story have persisted for years, often overshadowing the true narrative. The events leading up to Kimberly's disappearance are shrouded in mystery, with only fragments of information available to piece together a timeline. What is known is that Kimberly had obtained a bus ticket from Davenport to Houston, purchased by her mother, and planned to return to Houston on March 20th, 1980, the same day she vanished. The last confirmed sighting of Kimberly was on the day of her disappearance. She made a phone call to her mother, during which she mentioned a girl named Kathy. This phone call remains one of the few concrete pieces of evidence in the case. However, the exact location from which Kimberly made the call is unknown. While it is generally believed she called from Davenport, her mother has speculated that the call may have been made from a stopover along the bus route. No one saw Kimberly leave Davenport, and it remains unclear whether she ever boarded the bus to Houston. The lack of witnesses and the passage of time have made it nearly impossible to determine what happened to her after that fateful phone call. The investigation into Kimberly's disappearance has been plagued by errors and missed opportunities from the very beginning. When Kimberly's mother attempted to file a missing person report immediately after her disappearance, both the Houston and Davenport police departments refused to accept it. It wasn't until September 1982, over 2 years later, that a report was finally filed. Further compounding the challenges, Kimberly was removed from the missing children's database when she turned 18, but her case was not transferred to the missing adults system. Additionally, an alias that was falsely attributed to Kimberly in 1991 continued to be associated with her case for years, leading to confusion and misinformation. Detective Lauren Anderson, who was assigned to Kimberly's case in June 2024, has made significant strides in correcting these errors. She has worked tirelessly to separate fact from fiction, updating Kimberly's information in national databases such as NCIC, NEMOS, and NCMEC. These efforts have been instrumental in bringing Kimberly's case back into the spotlight and ensuring that it receives the attention it deserves. Despite the passage of 45 years, Kimberly's family and advocates remain steadfast in their pursuit of answers. The biggest obstacles in the case are the sheer amount of time that has elapsed and the persistence of outdated and inaccurate information. Every time incorrect details are shared or repeated, it hinders the progress of the investigation. Kimberly's family has been at the forefront of efforts to keep her case alive. Her mother and sister have spent decades advocating for her, working with organizations like A Voice for the Lost to share her story. Detective Anderson's dedication has also been a source of hope, as she continues to sift through old files, interview witnesses, and pursue any leads that may arise. The most important thing the public can do to assist in the investigation is to ensure that accurate information about Kimberly's case is shared. This means refraining from creating new flyers or spreading outdated details. Instead, focus on sharing her official flyer and amplifying the most current information available. By keeping Kimberly's name and story in the public eye, we can increase the chances that someone with crucial information will come forward. Together, we can help bring closure to Kimberly's family and ensure that her story is remembered for the truth it holds, not the rumors that have clouded it for far too long. Carrie Lee Berget, a 29-year-old mother of two, vanished on the early morning hours of March 28, 2017, under strange and troubling circumstances. Living in West Liberty, Kentucky, Carrie was a stay-at-home mom, living with her parents and juggling the challenges of raising her two children. With an entire life ahead of her, no one could have imagined that this seemingly ordinary night would be the last time Carrie's family would ever see her. On the night of March 28, 2017, Carrie and her boyfriend left her home shortly after midnight. The exact living arrangements aren't entirely clear from the reports, but it is believed Carrie was living with her family at the time. According to Carrie's family, she had told them that she'd be back in time to get her children ready for school. This was the last time anyone in her family would hear from her. Carrie's boyfriend and his sister, who had been with her that night, provided conflicting stories regarding her departure. According to Carrie's boyfriend's sister, Carrie had left in the middle of the night with someone they didn't know, and they had no idea where she was headed. This raised questions for Carrie's family, as they were never given any more details about her whereabouts or intentions. Strangely, after Carrie went missing, her boyfriend never contacted her family to check if she had made it back home or to express concern. In the days following Carrie's disappearance, her family was forced to confront disturbing details about her boyfriend's actions. According to reports, Carrie's boyfriend sold her jewelry shortly after she vanished. Her family eventually located and bought back some of the jewelry, but it was stolen during a break-in at their home shortly afterward. The theft of Carrie's possessions, combined with her boyfriend's seemingly indifferent attitude toward her disappearance, added to the growing suspicion that something far darker was at play. Despite the troubling circumstances, police initially reported that no foul play was suspected in Carrie's disappearance. However, many, including her family, found it difficult to believe this claim. The lack of clear answers, coupled with the strange behavior surrounding Carrie's departure and her boyfriend's actions, left everyone wondering if the truth had yet to be uncovered. Carrie had distinctive features that made her easy to recognize. She had recently dyed her hair blue, just weeks before her disappearance. She also had multiple tattoos, a racing fox head with the initials JG on her left back shoulder, the word Leslie on her left ankle, the name Jordan on her right wrist, and an unknown tattoo on her lower back. These tattoos could provide vital clues in identifying her if she were ever found. Carrie's family reported her missing by April 6, 2017, after days of uncertainty and frustration. Despite efforts to uncover the truth, no one knew where Carrie had gone or what had happened to her. Authorities were able to confirm that Carrie had left in the company of her boyfriend and his sister, but their accounts of the situation were inconsistent and lacked vital details. By the time of her disappearance, Carrie had been living in West Liberty for several years, where she had graduated from Morgan County High School in 2006. Though her life had its struggles, she was a devoted mother to her 2 children and had a family who cared deeply for her. The sudden, unexplained nature of her disappearance left a void that her family has never been able to fill. As the years have passed, many theories have emerged about what may have happened to Carrie. Was she the victim of foul play, or did something else lead to her disappearance? Carrie's boyfriend has been a focal point of suspicion, given the strange behavior and his lack of concern for her safety. The sale of her jewelry and the break-in at her family's home only added to the sense that there may have been more to Carrie's disappearance than initially met the eye. The involvement of unknown individuals, the absence of clear answers, and the strange circumstances surrounding her boyfriend's actions all point to the possibility that Carrie did not simply leave on her own. Whether she was kidnapped, met with an unfortunate fate, or something else entirely is still unknown. As of 2025, Carrie Lee Berget's case remains unsolved, with little evidence, conflicting stories, and no concrete leads. The mystery of Carrie's disappearance continues to haunt those who knew and loved her. If you have any information regarding Carrie Lee Berget's disappearance or her whereabouts, please contact the Morgan County Sheriff's Office at 60674-33613 or the Kentucky State Police Post 8 at 606-7 84-44127. You can also submit an anonymous tip via the Find Carrie Berget Facebook page. The story of Amy Hooper is one of tragedy, mystery, and resilience. On March 9, 1992, the life of this vibrant 19-year-old was brutally cut short in her Lincoln Village apartment in Columbus, Ohio. For over 3 decades, her murder remained unsolved, leaving her family and investigators grappling with unanswered questions. However, recent advancements in DNA technology have reignited hope for justice. This comprehensive exploration delves into every detail of Amy's life, the events leading up to her murder, the investigation, and the potential connections to other unsolved homicides in the area. Amy Joy Hooper was born on November 2, 1971, in Columbus, Ohio. She was the youngest of 3 daughters in a blended family. Her parents, Joy Long and Hollis Hooper, divorced when Amy was young, and she split her time between her mother's home in Houston, Texas, and her father's home in Davenport, Iowa. Despite the challenges of moving between 2 cities, Amy was described as a free spirit who adapted well to her circumstances. Amy was particularly close to her mother and her stepsister, Wendy. She had a passion for fashion and worked as an assistant manager at Berman's Leather, a store in the Westland Mall in Columbus. Amy was known for her reliability and dedication to her job. She never missed a day of work and was well liked by her coworkers. In the months leading up to her murder, Amy had moved into her own apartment in the Lincoln Village complex, sharing the space with a roommate and her roommate's child. She was in a relationship with a boyfriend who attended Bowling Green State University, and the two had recently become engaged. Amy's life was full of promise, but it was tragically cut short on March 9, 1992. On the morning of March 9, 1992, Amy visited her mother's house in Grove City to return her car, which she had borrowed for the weekend. She chatted with her mother while getting ready for work, mentioning that she had a manager's meeting at noon. Amy borrowed her sister's car for the day and left her mother's house around 6:30 a.m. When Amy failed to show up for her meeting, her co-workers became concerned. By midday, her family and friends were frantically trying to reach her. Around 3:30 p.m., Amy's employer called her mother, Joy, to express their concern. Joy, along with Amy's father, Hollis Hooper, and a maintenance worker, went to Amy's apartment to check on her. What they found was horrifying. Amy's naked body was lying face up on the hardwood floor of her bedroom. Her hands were loosely bound behind her back with a wooden and leather medallion, a heart-shaped pendant painted in the colors of the African flag. Amy had been brutally beaten and stabbed multiple times. There were no signs of forced entry, leading investigators to believe that Amy may have known her attacker and let them into her apartment. The investigation into Amy's murder was plagued by challenges from the start. The wooden medallion found at the scene became a focal point for detectives, who theorized that it might hold a clue to the killer's identity. However, it was later revealed that Amy's sister had given her the medallion as a gift, diminishing its significance as a potential clue. Despite extensive efforts, investigators were unable to identify a suspect. Amy's boyfriend, roommate, and other acquaintances were all cleared of involvement. The case went cold, and for over 3 decades, Amy's family was left without answers. In 2024, a breakthrough finally came. Using advanced DNA technology and investigative genetic genealogy, IgG, law enforcement identified Bruce Edward Daniels, a 57-year-old man living in Tumwater, Washington, as a suspect in Amy's murder. Daniels, who was 25 years old at the time of Amy's murder, had lived in Columbus during the early 1990s. Investigators obtained a DNA sample from an item Daniels had discarded, which matched DNA evidence collected from Amy's body. This led to his arrest and indictment on charges of murder and rape. While Amy's case has seen significant progress, it raises questions about whether Daniels may be connected to other unsolved homicides in the Columbus area during the same time period. Between 1991 and 1992, several women, many of whom were sex workers, were found murdered under similar circumstances. On May 20, 1991, the body of 25-year-old Willette Michelle Shepard was discovered in a dumpster behind a plastics business on Field Avenue. She had been beaten to death, and her body showed signs of blunt force trauma. Shepard, a known sex worker, had been arrested multiple times for prostitution-related offenses. On September 16, 1991, 21-year-old Sharonda Norris was found strangled and partially clothed near Agler Road. Norris, who had a history of drug abuse, was last seen alive on September 15, 1991. On December 3, 1990, 30-year-old Portia Mitchell was found strangled in a field behind a mobile home park. Mitchell, a mother of 6, had a history of prostitution and drug abuse. On January 25, 1992, 35-year-old Janet Louise Omar was found strangled in a vacant house on Berkeley Road. Omar, who had a criminal record for armed robbery, was last seen alive on January 4, 1992. On February 17, 1992, 29-year-old Darlene Gervin was found beaten and strangled in her apartment on Lily Avenue. Gervin, a former cashier, had been last seen leaving a bar with an unidentified man. On May 12, 1992, 25-year-old Andrea Dura was found strangled near Sunbury Road. Dura, a sex worker from Cleveland, had traveled to Columbus with friends before her murder. On May 21, 1992, 35-year-old Brenda Morrison was found beaten and strangled in her apartment on West Franklin Park Avenue. On November 15, 2004, 47-year-old Frances Smith was found beaten and strangled behind a home on Livingston Avenue. Smith, who had a history of drug abuse, was last seen getting into a white SUV. The similarities between these cases, particularly the victims' demographics, the manner of death, and the proximity of the crime scenes, have led investigators to consider the possibility of a serial killer operating in the Columbus area during the early 1990s. Bruce Edward Daniels, who has been linked to Amy Hooper's murder, may have been responsible for some or all of these killings. Daniels' arrest for solicitation of a sex worker in 1993, just a year after Amy's murder, further supports the theory that he may have targeted vulnerable women. However, without concrete evidence linking him to the other cases, this remains speculative. The biggest obstacles in solving Amy's case today are the passage of time and the persistence of outdated and inaccurate information. Every time incorrect details are shared or repeated, it hinders the progress of the investigation. Amy's family has been at the forefront of efforts to keep her case alive. Her mother and sister have spent decades advocating for her, working with organizations like A Voice for the Lost to share her story. Detective Lauren Anderson's dedication has also been a source of hope as she continues to sift through old files, interview witnesses, and pursue any leads that may arise. The most important thing the public can do to assist in the investigation is to ensure that accurate information about Amy's case is shared. This means refraining from creating new flyers or spreading outdated details. Instead, focus on sharing her official flyer and amplifying the most current information available. By keeping Amy's name and story in the public eye, we can increase the chances that someone with crucial information will come forward. Together, we can help bring closure to Amy's family and ensure that her story is remembered for the truth it holds, not the rumors that have clouded it for far too long. If you have any information about Amy Hooper's murder or the other cases mentioned in this video, please contact the Franklin County Sheriff's Office or your local law enforcement agency. In the quiet, unassuming town of Claremont, Florida, nestled amidst the rolling hills and citrus groves of Lake County, a tragedy unfolded on a warm spring night in 1975 that would leave the community shaken and a family shattered. The story of John Harden's murder is one of mystery, violence, and unanswered questions that have lingered for nearly half a century. It is a tale that begins with hope and ends in bloodshed, a story that has been buried beneath the weight of time, rumors, and ghostly legends. But at its core, it is the story of a man whose life was cut short and the enduring quest for justice that has yet to be fulfilled. John Warren Harden was born on January 20th, 1943 in Claremont, Florida, to John Guy Harden Jr. and Beulah Agnes Warren. His parents, both young and full of promise, had married just 9 months before his birth. John's early years were marked by the upheaval of his parents' divorce when he was just 3 years old. His mother, Beulah, became his primary caregiver, raising him in the small, close-knit community of Claremont. From a young age, John was known for his love of the outdoors. He was an adventurous boy who enjoyed fishing, hiking, and spending time with friends. Those who knew him described him as kind-hearted, always willing to lend a hand or offer a listening ear. He was the kind of person who cared deeply for his family and friends, a trait that would define him throughout his life. John attended Claremont High School where he met Rita Morans, the woman who would become his first wife. The two were high school sweethearts, and their relationship quickly blossomed into a deep and abiding love. Despite the complexities of their early years, Rita's brief marriage to another man and the birth of her son Timothy, John and Rita married in 1961 and began building a life together. In 1960, at the age of 17, John enlisted in the U.S. Air Force, following in the footsteps of his father, who had served in the Army Corps of Engineers. John's military service took him to various bases across the country, and Rita accompanied him, taking on the role of homemaker and mother. Together, they welcomed their first child, Timothy, and later expanded their family with 3 more children, Lisa, Lori, and John Jr. After his honorable discharge from the Air Force in 1964, John returned to Florida with Rita and their growing family. They settled in Jacksonville, where John worked in the HVAC industry, specializing in air conditioning and refrigeration. He quickly earned a reputation as a skilled and reliable technician, known for his ability to fix almost anything. He was the kind of man who would go out of his way to help others, often charging less than his competitors to ensure his clients could afford his services. But beneath the surface of this seemingly idyllic life, cracks began to form. John and Rita's marriage, once strong and full of promise, began to falter. In 1973, after 13 years of marriage, John told Rita he needed to get away to work on some personal problems. He left the family home, and their divorce was finalized in January 1974. Despite the end of their marriage, Rita would later speak of John with deep affection, describing him as a loving and caring man who was taken from her too soon. After leaving Rita, John's life took a dramatic turn. He met and fell in love with a young woman named Victoria Vicky Mango, who was 10 years his junior. The two married, and in June 1974, they welcomed their first child together, a son they named John Warren Harden Jr. The couple's life seemed to be on an upward trajectory when they inherited a beautiful Victorian home in Claremont from one of Vicky's relatives. The house, built in 1881, was a stunning piece of history, and John and Vicky decided to move in while they prepared it for sale. John's business, Mango Refrigeration, began to thrive in Claremont. He took on contracts with local fruit growers, restaurants, and even the city itself. But his success did not come without conflict. John's refusal to join local unions and his willingness to take on non-union jobs drew the ire of union members who saw him as a threat to their livelihood. According to Vicky, John had expressed concerns that union members were out to get him, but he refused to back down, determined to build a better life for his new family. On the night of March 22, 1975, John, Vicky, and their 9-month-old son returned home after a late-night service call to a local restaurant. As they pulled into the driveway of their Claremont home, they had no idea that they were walking into a deadly trap. Moments after entering the house, John noticed his work truck was on fire. He rushed outside, naked and desperate to extinguish the flames, only to be met with a single shotgun blast that struck him in the chest. He collapsed in the driveway, whispering to Vicky, "They shot me," before slipping into unconsciousness. Neighbors, drawn by the fire, called for help, but it was too late. John was pronounced dead at the hospital just 15 minutes after the shooting. Investigators quickly determined that the fire had been deliberately set to lure John outside, and the phone lines to the home had been cut to prevent any calls for help. The killer had lain in wait, hidden in the bushes, before firing the fatal shot and disappearing into the night. The murder weapon, an old and untraceable 20-gauge shotgun, was found discarded in the bushes nearby. Despite an extensive investigation, no suspects were ever identified, and the case grew cold. Over the years, rumors and ghost stories began to circulate, with some claiming that John's spirit haunted the Victorian home where he was killed. But the truth of what happened that night, who killed John Harden and why, remains a mystery. In the decades since John's murder, several theories have emerged about who might have been responsible for his death. Some have speculated that John's first wife, Rita, or his son Timothy may have been involved, but these theories lack any substantial evidence. Others have pointed to Vicky, suggesting that she may have had a hand in her husband's death, but again, there is no proof to support these claims. One of the most compelling theories involves John's conflicts with local labor unions. At the time of his murder, union-related violence was rampant in Central Florida, with bombings, arson, and shootings targeting non-union workers and businesses. John's refusal to join the unions and his success in securing lucrative contracts may have made him a target. The fact that his truck was set on fire, a common tactic used by union saboteurs, lends credence to this theory. Another possibility is that John's murder was connected to his alleged involvement in drug trafficking. While there is no concrete evidence to support this claim, some have suggested that John may have been involved in illegal activities that ultimately led to his death. However, without any solid leads or witnesses coming forward, this theory remains speculative. Nearly 50 years after John Harden's murder, the case remains unsolved. Despite the efforts of investigators and the passage of time, no one has ever been held accountable for his death. The murder weapon, the old 20-gauge shotgun, has never been traced to its owner, and the killer's identity remains a mystery. John's story is one of tragedy and loss, But it is also a story of resilience and the enduring hope for justice. His family, friends, and the community of Claremont have never forgotten him, and his memory lives on in the hearts of those who loved him. While the truth of what happened that night may never be known, the quest for answers continues, a testament to the enduring power of love, memory, and the human spirit. In the years following John's murder, the Victorian home where he was killed became the subject of numerous ghost stories and paranormal investigations. Some claim to have seen John's spirit wandering the property, while others reported strange occurrences, such as doors opening on their own and unexplained cold spots. These tales, while intriguing, have done little to shed light on the mystery of John's death. For those who knew and loved John, the true horror lies not in the ghost stories, but in the unanswered questions that surround his murder. Who killed John Harden? Why was he targeted? And will justice ever be served? These are the questions that haunt his family and the community of Claremont, as his case remains unsolved.